Hello, dear children. Welcome back to our news channel. Students, today we are diving into something that impacts millions of people in India. It is how the Supreme Court of India, which is the apex court, hears cases. Have you ever wondered how the Supreme Court, which handles thousands of cases every year, decides like which ones to hear first? And what is the process? How do Chief Justices of India tackle the enormous backlog of cases? Well, today we will answer all these questions in a straightforward way. So grab your notebooks or just sit back and listen. And let's get started. First, let's start with the basics, right? The Supreme Court of India, or the SC, as we call it for short, is the highest court in India, right? It's where people go when they actually want to appeal decisions made by lower courts like high courts. ओके तो सबसे पहले सुप्रीम कोर्ट क्या है? हाईएस्ट कोर्ट है, एपेक्स कोर्ट है, राइट? जैसे अगर हम इमेजिन करें छोटे लेवल पे, अगर हम इमेजिन करें तो आपने देखा होगा कि कई सारे कॉलेजेस होते हैं और वो किससे एफिलिएटेड होते हैं? एक सर्टेन यूनिवर्सिटी से, राइट? तो वैसे ही हमारे इंडिया में इंटीग्रेटेड जुडिशियल सिस्टम है, right? So at the top we have Supreme Court and then high courts in different state. And then high courts क्या हो गए? State level पर. Supreme Court is at national level. And then in different districts or in several together we have district court. District court हो गया या session court हो गया. तो आप देख सकते हो कि it's an integrated judicial system. All right. So mostly people go to Supreme Court when they want to appeal decisions made by lower courts like high courts. Now here's the catch. Supreme Court doesn't hear every cases that comes its way. Instead, it carefully selects which cases to take up. Why? Because there are just too many cases for the court to handle. Imagine a classroom with thousands of students all asking the teachers for help at the same time. That's what the Supreme Court deals with every day. And most of the cases that come to the Supreme Court are called special leave petitions. Yes, these are called special leave petitions or SLPs. These are appeals where people are asking the Supreme Court to grant leave basically or permission to hear the cases. है ना? ताकि कोर्ट्स उन्हें परमिशन दे जो उनका केस है उसको सुनने के लिए. The court has the power to say yes or no to these requests. कोर्ट के पास पावर है. कोर्ट कैन इवन से नो. अगर उन्हें लगता है कि कोई केस नहीं अभी ठीक नहीं है या फिर उसमें कुछ फॉल्ट है तो कोर्ट उसको मना भी कर सकता है. So how does the Supreme Court manage its time? Well, it has a weekly schedule. Let me explain. The Supreme Court works Monday to Friday. It works from Monday to Friday. But each day is used for different kinds of cases. Right now, under the leadership of Chief Justice of India, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, the court has made some changes to its schedule. All right. So what changes they have made? They have decided that from Mondays and Fridays are for fresh cases. Just Monday or Friday are for fresh cases. These are new cases being introduced to the court. मतलब जो न्यू केस जो इंट्रोड्यूस होगा कोर्ट में वो मंडे को होगा और फ्राइडे को. Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays are for what are called after notice miscellaneous matters. These are cases where the court has already issued a notice to the parties involved and is deciding whether to admit the case for a detailed hearing or not. ओके, तो ट्यूसडे वेंसडेज और थर्सडेज को क्या है, ऐसे केसेस जहां पे इट केसेस वेयर द कोर्ट हैज ऑलरेडी इशूड अ नोटिस, ऑलरेडी नोटिस इशू कर दिया है एंड इज डिसाइडिंग वेदर टू एडमिट द केस फॉर अ डिटेल हियरिंग और नॉट. The goal of this schedule is to hear as many cases as possible, especially those that don't require long arguments. Now, students, another thing that we are going to discuss today regarding the cases that is handled by Supreme Court is what are SLPs, or and why do they matter? Students, SLPs, or just now that we have discussed, let me uh, just a second. Yes, so SLPs or special leave petitions. Yes, special leave petitions. They make up over 90%. Yes, 90% of the cases that Supreme Court deals with. And SLP is like asking the court for permission to appeal a decision from High Court. For example, if you feel a High Court didn't give you justice, you can file an SLP with the Supreme Court. But here's the thing, Supreme Court doesn't accept every SLP or every case. In fact, only about 14%, yes, only about 14% of these cases are admitted. Yes, Supreme Court accepts only 14% of SLPs. Why so few? Because the Supreme Court wants to focus on cases that involve important legal or constitutional cases. For example, if a case could impact the entire country or set a new legal precedent, it's more likely to be heard. अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास ऐसा केस आता है जिसमें कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से इन्वॉल्व है एंड जिसके डिसीजन से पूरी कंट्री पे असर हो सकता है, तो कोर्ट का मेन प्रायोरिटी वही केसेस होते हैं. एंड हियर्स अ फन फैक्ट, द एवरेज टाइम द सुप्रीम कोर्ट स्पेंड्स deciding whether to admit an SLP is just 1 minute and 33 seconds. 1 minute and 33 सेकेंड में सुप्रीम कोर्ट डिसाइड कर लेता है कि वो केस एडमिट करेंगे कि नहीं. दैट्स हाउ क्विकली दे डिसाइड. Now, let's talk about a major challenge the Supreme Court faces, which is backlog of cases. है ना, यहाँ पे भी इस आर्टिकल में भी यही मेंशन है कि हम बैकलॉग ऑफ केसेस क्या क्या है और कैसे वो अफेक्ट करता है. See, this is one of the challenge which Supreme Court faces, and right now there are more than 82,000 cases pending in the Supreme Court. Imagine having a to-do list with 82,000 tasks. Oh my God, that's what the Supreme Court is dealing with. To tackle this, Chief Justices of India have tried different strategies. And Justice Khanna, which is now our current CJI, is prioritizing after notice miscellaneous matters to quickly decide which cases to admit or reject. अभी हमने बात किया था कि आफ्टर नोटिस मिसलेनियस मैटर्स क्या होते हैं, इसके बारे में हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. अगर आपको नहीं समझ में आया, यू कैन अगेन गो बैक टू द स्टार्ट ऑफ द वीडियो. Now, by clearing these after notice miscellaneous matters, the court can focus on more complex cases that needed detailed hearing. तो जिन केसेस में डिटेल हियरिंग की जरूरत है उस पर फोकस कर सकते हैं. Students, Chief Justice of India or CGI plays a huge role in managing the Supreme Court's workload. CGI is like the captain of a ship deciding which direction to steer. For example, Justice Khanna is focusing on admission stage cases, while his predecessor, जो उनके पहले थे, like Justice Chandrachud, he prioritized on long pending constitutional matters. Don't worry, younger students, अगर आपको थोड़ा सी टेक्निकल टर्म लग रहे हैं, हम इसके बारे में समझेंगे, मेंटरशिप क्लासेस में भी समझेंगे और अच्छे से डिटेल में. एंड आपको अगर फिर भी डाउट है, देन यू कैन आस्क मी इन द कमेंट्स बिलो. So each CJI is has their own approach. Each CJI has their own approach based on what they think is the best way to reduce pendency. ओके हर एक सीजीआई की अलग डिफरेंट स्ट्रैटेजी होती है ताकि केस के जितने भी केसेस हैं उसको पेंडिंग कैसे जितने भी पेंडिंग केसेस हैं उसको कैसे हैंडल किया जाए, कैसे वो सारे केसेस क्लियर हो. तो हर एक सीजीआई की डिफरेंट डिफरेंट स्ट्रैटेजी रही है. बट नो मैटर द स्ट्रैटेजी, द गोल इज द सेम, टू डिलीवर जस्टिस efficiently and fairly. Now let's take a look behind the scenes at how a, a case moves through the Supreme Court. अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आखिरकार कोई भी केस कैसे चलता है, कैसे हैंडल किया जाता है, इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा समझते हैं. See, when a case is filed, it first goes to the registry. सबसे पहले क्या होता है कि जब भी केस कोई फाइल होता है सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, इट गोज टू द registry, right? This is you can say this is the administrative arm of the Supreme Court. The registry has two main wings. एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव है जो केस के लिस्टिंग हैंडल करता है और दूसरा जुडिशियल विंग है जो लीगल प्रोसेस को हैंडल करता है, जैसे कि आखिरकार जो केस है उसमें सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स सारे प्रॉपरली है कि नहीं. So this is being done by the judicial wing. Now once a case is filed, it's given a number and reviewed for any errors. So if there are mistakes, the lawyer has to fix them within 90 days. Only after this process is complete and the case is listed for hearing. तो अगर कोई केस जैसे कि ऐसा नहीं होता ना कि अगर केस अगर फाइल कर दिया सुप्रीम कोर्ट में और तुरंत उस पे कोर्ट वर्डिक्ट सुनाने लग जाता है. नो, ऐसा नहीं होता है. सबसे पहले रजिस्ट्री में केस को सबमिट किया जाता है, फिर वहां पे चेक किया जाता है कि उस केस में जो फाइल है उसमें पूरे प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं कि नहीं. अगर प्रॉपर डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं होते हैं तो जो लॉयर जिन्होंने फाइल किया है उनको 90 डेज होता है. द डिफेक्ट्स दैट हैज टू बी checked and it has to be rectified within 90 days. And in such cases, both the lawyer and their assistant have to check and refile the case to ensure that the defects have been cured. उनको चेक करते रहना होता है, नहीं तो फिर केस नहीं तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट उनके केस को सुनेगा ही नहीं. All right. So what happens when a case is finally heard in court? See, when a case is listed, it's assigned to a bench of judges. जैसे जितने जजेस के बेंच होते हैं उनको असाइन किया जाता है. On Mondays and Fridays, the judges hear fresh matter. These are often brief and may involve issuing notices or dismissing cases outright. तो मंडेज और फ्राइडेज को हमने पहले क्या डिस्कस किया था कि न्यू केस जो एडमिट किया जाएगा उसके बारे में सुना जाएगा. तो अगर जजेस को लगा कि दिस केस इज एलिजिबल फॉर हियरिंग तो वो उसको एडमिट कर लेते हैं, नहीं है तो उसको आउटराइटली इट्स बीइंग डिसमिस्ड. On other days, the court hears more detailed arguments in cases that have already been admitted. And these hearings can take months or even years before a final verdict is delivered. इसीलिए तो उतना ज़्यादा टाइम लग जाता है और इसीलिए आपने देखा होगा कि कोर्ट में बहुत सारे केसेस पेंडिंग हैं. Right? Now you might be wondering, why should I care about this as a student? Well, the Supreme Court isn't just a building or a set of rules. It's an institution that protects your rights, your fundamental rights. For example, many landmark judgments like those on environmental protection, education, and human rights come from the Supreme Court. And by understanding how the court works, you are better equipped to engage with the legal system and fight for justice if you ever need to. All right. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We have covered a lot, from the Supreme Court's weekly schedule to how cases are selected and the challenges of tackling the backlog. If there's one takeaway from today's episode, it's this: The Supreme Court plays a crucial role in shaping the laws and rights that govern our lives. And while it faces many challenges, it continues to evolve and adapt to serve the people of India. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to share it with your friends and subscribe for more episodes. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.